Volume is off. Okay, there we go. So probably one of the big topics that a lot of people really concern ourselves with is as we age is things like cognitive decline. And so I just want to spend just a few minutes talking about different types of cognitive and spatial and perceptual changes that we see across the lifespan. Okay. What this graph right here represents is these are all kind of the traditional types of intelligence that we tend to measure. So there's inductive reasoning, so taking pieces of information to make a broader statement. Spatial orientation, so this is making sure that a square goes in a square hole and a circle goes in a circle hole. Those kind of abilities. Perceptual speed, so this is how quickly we generate a solution to a problem, for example, or how quickly we identify something in the environment. Numerical and verbal, these are all the reading, math, all of those types of abilities. Okay. You'll note that the one type of reasoning, one type of intelligence that tends to slow kind of across the lifespan, that we're actually better at younger ages, is our perceptual speed. This is basically, if you want to think of perceptual speed in this context too, it's basically reaction time. So how quickly you react to, for example, an emergency situation, how quickly you move out of a way of a speeding bullet, as an example. And it's probably not too surprising that this one is something that in our younger adult years, we're much quicker at. Our reaction time is much quicker, and then it declines steadily across the lifespan. Okay. But I think and we can also see that same kind of trend. So let me pull up this so we can write on it. So two types of intelligence that we tend to be better at our younger years are, of course, our reaction time or perceptual speed and numerical abilities. So this is mathematics, those kinds of things. These tend to kind of slide off starting in around the age of about 53, then gradually reduce. Okay. Counter to the belief that we have our intelligence and everything set by the age of 18 and we can't get any smarter or any better at anything. Counter to this, with the exception of perceptual and numerical types of intelligence and abilities, we actually are at our best, our cognitive best, between the age of about 49 to about the age of 60. Okay. This is where we see the arch in all the different other types of intelligence, such as reasoning, such as verbal ability, memory ability, spatial orientation. All of these tend to be at their peak level in the middle adult years. Okay. And, if we took a line and we were to combine these, I'll change it to blue. Our best abilities are right at this age group right here. So again, counter to the belief that as we age and whatnot, we see significant amounts of decline cognitively. That's kind of a myth, a social myth. We're actually at our most intelligent between about the age of 39 to about the age of 60. Okay. And then, as you can see, there's a large spread of decline afterwards. Now, I don't want everyone to interpret this like, oh my gosh, look how things just start to rapidly decline at around the age of 60, 67 years old. No, what I would focus on in this section is the divergence of intelligence, the differences. Okay, meaning, because what this tells me as a scientist is that cognitive decline varies based on domains and individuals. There's less individual differences in this age group and in this age group than in this age group. So what this tells me as a scientist is that cognitive decline in the late years is really dependent upon the individual, that individual variability is more accounts for more of the cognitive decline changes in late adulthood than it does in middle and early adulthood. Okay, which again is counter to that idea that once you hit late adulthood, everyone will experience cognitive declines and intellectual declines. And indeed, the truth of the matter is that it's very much dependent upon the individual and whether or not they do things like lifelong learning, they remain engaged in their life, they remain curious about the way things are, predisposition to things like dementia, um, and all those different varied factors really account for how much decline a person will experience in late adulthood. Okay. Now, there is, and I'm going to draw another graph right here. There is two types of intelligence that do seem to be age related as far as which ones we use. Okay. Uh, I'm going to use a red line for a term called fluid intelligence. I'm going to use a green line for something called crystallized intelligence. Okay. What these two types of intelligence are is fluid intelligence. You you use the situation as it presents itself to determine a solution to a problem. Okay, meaning that you're not relying just on past experience and past situations. You can easily integrate new information to develop novel solutions to a problem. That's fluid intelligence. Crystallized intelligence is when you have to use your fixed knowledge in order to solve a problem. Okay, hence the term crystallized. All right. So as I mentioned, the green line represents crystallized intelligence, and here we have young adult and late adult on this axis. And on this axis, this is how much we use this type of intelligence. So high, low, okay? And what we find with crystallized intelligence is young adulthood, we tend to use it less, but then as we age, we tend to use crystallized intelligence more than we use fluid intelligence. While the opposite is with fluid intelligence. We use fluid intelligence, we use information as it comes and goes, and it declines over the lifespan. Okay. So here is where some type of stereotypes and myths can come up, like the idea that you can't teach an old dog new tricks. Um, don't argue with grandma and grandpa; they're set in their ways. Okay, in some ways, those adages are a vestige of this idea that as we age, we tend to use the knowledge we have even to solve new and novel problems. Okay. Whereas in our younger years, we tend to rely on the information that is being provided to us um, in order to make a decision about what we should do. Okay. Now, part of this is age related. So the majority of everyone will start to use more crystallized knowledge as you get older and stop relying on new information as we get older and whatnot. But there's also a personality factor to this. Okay. One of the big five personality traits is what's known as openness to experience. Okay. This is the idea of someone who is open minded versus closed minded. Okay. And this personality factor does seem to play a role in how much a person will change from fluid intelligence to crystallized intelligence. The higher a person's measures on the closed minded side of the openness scale, the greater amount of crystallized knowledge they're going to use. They're going to stop relying on new information that comes to them and whatnot. Whereas people who have an open mind personality, they tend to still be able to retain some of the fluid intelligence and are less pronounced by crystallized intelligence. Okay, so even though these trends are something that we will all trend towards, the amount we will rely on crystallized versus fluid intelligence seems to be related to this personality factor of openness to closeness. Okay. So again, as we age, we'll start to use our experience more to solve novel problems. Okay. And to the myth that once we're past the age of young adulthood, we're not going to get any smarter. While this kind of proves it, we're actually at our most intellectual intelligence level in middle adulthood. And the last thing that I would say about the cognitive changes across the lifespan is late adulthood, while it is associated with some cognitive decline, it's very individual based on the spreads between each of these types of intelligence, suggesting that late adulthood doesn't mean that you're going to experience significant, huge amounts of cognitive decline, but it's a combination of different factors um, that we have found will really determine how much cognitive decline we will experience in late adulthood. Okay. So those are some things that I wanted to cover as we move into late adulthood. We covered all of these with the videos. This is a eh, okay. So what I want to do just for a few minutes is set up our conversation for this coming Thursday as we now transition into late adulthood. Okay. Because this is one area that is really actually very difficult to really define precisely what is late adulthood. Um, Mainly because individuals, as you saw in that graph that we just looked at, there is so much more variation between individuals physically, cognitively, and socially. And there's all of these play a role on aging into late adulthood. Okay. We will see this coming Thursday that longevity isn't only about keeping ourselves physically fit and eating the right foods and doing those. It actually has a lot to do with social processes. In fact, if you want to determine how long someone will live, you're more better at looking at their social circle than you are looking at their diet and looking at their exercise. The stronger the social circle, the longer the individual tends to live healthier and happier. And we also know, okay, cognitive changes also influence um, um, aging well. Okay. The other factors we have to take into consideration when we're talking about late adulthood is death rates. Okay. Here in the, we live in this first world country here in the United States with access to all the modern technologies that can be provided. The United States actually has a lower mortality rate compared to other first world countries. And so we want to explore that because that also determines what we would consider late adulthood. Because for here in the United States, late adulthood is going to end in the 70s, maybe early 80s, where in other countries, late adulthood goes well into the 90s. And we also need to talk about the issue of retirement. A lot of countries that don't have retirement, person continues to go on and work throughout late adulthood. They also tend to live longer, live healthier lives than the retirement idea that we have here in the United States. Okay, so late adulthood is complicated to define because of the different mortality rates between groups and cultures. And what we consider late adulthood, is it when we start to physically decline, or is it when we retire? What is it exactly that makes late adulthood? Late adulthood is very culturally defined. Okay, so um, so we'll look at each of these domains of development. We're going to start with physical development. Um, Talking about different cardiological events, skin events, aging events. Um, and then we will talk about things like intellectual capacities. And again, we're going to come back to this topic that we just finished and really break a lot of myths that we have about older individuals. Okay. Um, so, and then we're going to talk about the social emotional world and what really does determine successful aging. I'm going to end with our lectures next Tuesday that successful aging is almost completely dependent upon the people we keep with us. And that's kind of where we're headed. Okay. So I'm going to escape out of here. Didn't take me as long as I thought it would. And I just want to ask, does anybody have any questions about young adulthood and middle adulthood as we now will transition this Thursday into late adulthood to finish the class? Is there any questions about those two adulthoods?